The Galactic Council chamber was the largest structure Admiral Daniel Hayes had ever seen. It stretched across 3 kilometers of crystal and metal on the neutral world of Verith Prime. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed inside the building. Lights floated in the air like tiny stars, and the floor was made of polished stone that reflected everything like a mirror. Daniel stood at the speaker's platform in the center of the chamber. He wore his best dress uniform, dark blue with gold buttons and medals on his chest. His silver hair was cut short, and his face showed the calm expression of a man who had seen many battles. Behind him, a holographic image showed Ambassador Laura Mitchell. She was back on Earth, but the technology made it seem like she stood right next to him. Around them, in rising circles of seats, sat representatives from 47 alien species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Daniel's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. There were creatures made of living stone, beings that floated in tanks of green liquid, and things that seemed to be made of pure light. The chamber hummed with the sound of translators working to convert thousands of languages into something everyone could understand. Daniel had come here with hope. Humanity had been traveling between the stars for almost 200 years. They had built colonies on 43 worlds. They had created a civilization that spanned light years, and now they wanted to join the Galactic Council as equal members. The Vorthon High Minister rose from his seat. He was tall and covered in scales that looked like black glass. His 6 eyes burned with orange fire on his face, and when he moved, his scales clicked together like armor. The Vorthon Dominion was one of the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. They had been sailing through space for 90,000 years. "The humans request membership," the High Minister said. His voice was deep and cold. "Again!" Laughter filled the chamber. It came from dozens of species, translated into sounds that Daniel could understand. Some of the aliens made clicking noises. Others hummed or whistled. But the meaning was clear. They were laughing at humanity. "Tell me, Admiral," the High Minister continued, turning his 6 eyes toward Daniel. "How long has your species been traveling between the stars? 2 centuries? 3? "Just under 200 years, Daniel replied. He kept his voice steady and calm. 200 years. The High Minister turned to face the rest of the chamber. "The Vorthon Dominion has sailed the void for 90,000 years. The Crystalline Accord has existed for 60,000 years. Even the youngest member of this council, the Rathani Collective, has been spacefaring for 4,000 years. The Rathani delegate nodded. She was a tall, thin creature with skin that changed colors like oil on water. Her people were considered young and weak by council standards, but they had still been exploring space when humans were living in caves. "Humanity controls 40 systems," the High Minister said. 40 systems. The Vorthon Dominion controls 12,000. You have no territory worth mentioning. Your military is a joke. Your technology is borrowed from others and barely understood. You are children playing at civilization. Ambassador Mitchell stepped forward through her holographic link. Her face was calm, but Daniel could see the anger in her eyes. "We have shown nothing but peaceful intentions," she said. "We have honored every treaty we have signed. We have shared our medical advances freely with any species that asked." "Medical advances," laughed the Krell ambassador. He was a massive creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with muscles that bulged under thick gray skin. His people were warriors who had conquered hundreds of worlds through pure strength. "You cure diseases that we eliminated before your species learned to walk upright. You offer nothing that we need." The chamber erupted in agreement. Yes, species that had fought wars against each other for thousands of years found common ground in their dismissal of humanity. They nodded and clicked and hummed their approval. Daniel felt the weight of their scorn pressing down on him. He had spent 30 years in the Earth Navy. He had fought pirates and defended colonies and lost friends in the darkness between stars. And now, these aliens looked at him like he was an insect. "Your ships are slow," said a delegate from the Merchant Coalition. "Your weapons are weak. Your shields fail under attacks that our vessels handle easily. Your population is small," added another delegate. 7 billion on your home world, 20 billion across all your colonies. The Vorthen Dominion has populations in the trillions." "You have nothing," the High Minister said, that his voice cutting through the noise. "You are nothing. This council exists to govern the great powers of the galaxy. You are not a great power. You are barely a power at all." Daniel wanted to speak. He wanted to defend his people, to explain what humanity had survived and overcome. But he knew that nothing he said would change their minds. They had already decided what humans were worth. "This session is concluded," the council speaker announced. She was a being of pure light, her form shifting and flowing like water. "Humanity's petition for membership is denied. You may return in 500 years when you have something to offer." 500 years. Daniel did the math in his head. Everyone he knew would be dead. Several generations would pass, and even then, there was no guarantee that the council would accept them. Then he turned to leave, Laura's hologram walking beside him. The great bronze doors of the chamber loomed ahead, carved with symbols from 100 civilizations. "Run home, little humans," the High Minister called after them. His voice echoed through the chamber, and more laughter followed. "Hide behind your 40 worlds. Enjoy them while you can. When the real powers of the galaxy move, stay out of our way. We would hate to step on you by accident." More laughter. More scorn. Daniel pushed through the bronze doors. They sealed behind him with a heavy boom that seemed to shake the floor. The laughter cut off, but he could still feel it, like a weight on his shoulders. Laura's hologram flickered beside him. "I'm sorry, Daniel. We knew this might happen." "They didn't just reject us," Daniel said quietly. "They humiliated us. They wanted us to feel small. They wanted us to feel worthless." He walked down the long corridor that led to the landing pads. His ship waited there, ready to take him home. "What do we do now?" Laura asked. Daniel stopped walking. He turned to look back at the bronze doors, still echoing with the memory of laughter. "We show them," he said. "We show them what humanity really is." He turned and continued walking toward his ship. Behind him, the Galactic Council celebrated their easy victory over the weak and foolish humans. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Daniel Hayes returned to Earth aboard the diplomatic vessel Endeavour. The journey took 3 days through the faster-than-light corridors that connected the galaxy. He spent most of that time alone in his cabin, staring at the stars and thinking about what had happened at the Council. When the ship landed at the military spaceport in Colorado, a black car was waiting for him. 2 soldiers in unmarked uniforms stood beside it. They said nothing as Daniel approached. They simply opened the door and waited for him to get inside. The car drove for 20 minutes through mountain roads. Then it turned onto a path that did not appear on any map. The road led to a tunnel carved into the side of a mountain. Armed guards checked the car 3 times before letting it pass. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, there was a facility that did not officially exist. It had no name, no address, and no records in any government database. The people who worked there had been told that their jobs did not exist, and their families believed they worked at regular military bases or research centers. General Kevin Porter waited in the main command center. He was a large man with a shaved head and eyes that had seen too much war. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing every human fleet, every space station, and every colony across all 43 star systems. "They laughed at us," Daniel said as he entered the room. He removed his cap and set it on a table. "We expected nothing less," Kevin replied. His voice was calm, almost bored. "That's exactly why we've been preparing." A woman approached from one of the side consoles. Dr. Samantha Cruz was in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair and glasses that reflected the blue light of the displays. She was the smartest person Daniel had ever met. And she was also the lead architect of something that humanity had simply called the Protocol. 17 years, she said, holding her tablet against her chest. 17 years of planning, every resource we could spare, every brilliant mind we could recruit, every secret we could keep. Daniel looked at the displays. Thousands of ships appeared as small dots of light. Millions of people lived in those colonies, on those stations. They were humanity's presence in the galaxy. "Show me," he said. Kevin nodded and touched a control panel. The holographic map changed. The 43 systems with human colonies began to pulse with soft light. Then, one by one, they started to blink out. The dots of light that represented ships and stations simply disappeared. "It's already begun," Kevin explained. "The moment your ship left Vareth Prime, we started the protocol." Daniel watched in silence as more and more lights vanished from the map. Mining stations in asteroid belts, research facilities orbiting gas giants, military bases guarding trade routes, all of them disappeared. "How is this possible?" Daniel asked, though he already knew part of the answer. Samantha stepped forward. "For 200 years, the galaxy has watched us struggle with basic faster-than-light travel. They've seen our ships break down, our engines fail, our shields collapse. They think we're barely competent at copying their technology." She touched her tablet, and a new display appeared. It showed complex mathematical formulas and diagrams that Daniel could not understand. "What they don't know is that we stopped copying their technology 80 years ago. We started developing our own. And we made sure to hide it from everyone, including most of our own people." Kevin took over the explanation. "Standard faster-than-light travel moves ships through normal space at incredible speeds. Every species in the galaxy uses some version of this technology. Some are faster than others, but they all work the same basic way." He pointed at the diagrams. "What Samantha and her team developed is completely different. We don't move through normal space at all. We move through other dimensions. Layers of reality that exist alongside our own, but are completely invisible to normal sensors." Daniel stared at the display. "You're saying our ships are still there? They're just in a different dimension." "Exactly," Samantha said. "To everyone watching with normal sensors, our ships have simply ceased to exist. They can't be tracked. They can't be followed, can't be found. For all practical purposes, we have vanished." Across the galaxy, confusion spread like a wave. Vorthon patrol fleets reported impossible readings. Krell monitoring stations detected ships that were there one moment and gone the next. The Merchant Coalition's trade vessels found human ports empty, human colonies abandoned. On a Vorthon warship near the border of human space, Commander Threll stared at his sensor display. His scales clicked nervously as he watched the last human signal disappear. "Where did they go?" he demanded. His sensor officer, a young Vorthon with bright orange eyes, shook his head. "I don't know, Commander. One moment they were there. The next moment, nothing. No explosion, no warp signature, no debris. They simply ceased to exist." "That's impossible," Threll said. Ships don't just vanish. Check the sensors again." But the sensors showed the same thing. Empty space where humans had been. No trace, no trail, no explanation. Back on Earth, Daniel watched the last lights disappear from the map. All 43 systems now showed nothing. Billions of humans had vanished from the galaxy in a matter of hours. "What about the people?" he asked. "The civilians on the colonies?" "Safe," Kevin assured him. "We evacuated the permanent colonies months ago under cover of routine population transfers. The stations and ships that remained were either automated or crewed by volunteers who knew the plan." Daniel nodded slowly. "And now what? We hide in another dimension forever?" Samantha shook her head. "No. Now we wait. The Council will panic. They'll send scouts to investigate. When they find nothing, Yeah, they'll panic more, and while they're busy trying to understand what happened, we'll be preparing the next phase. Which is? Kevin smiled for the first time since Daniel had arrived. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been waiting a very long time to hunt. We show them what hiding really means, Kevin said. We show them that they should have been afraid of us all along. We show them that the children they laughed at have teeth. On Vareth Prime, Ambassador Mitchell sent one final transmission before cutting all communications with the Council. You told us to stay out of your way, her message said. We have obliged. Then silence. The humans were gone, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. 3 days had passed since the humans vanished, and the Galactic Council was in chaos, and the Vorthan High Minister paced back and forth in his private chambers on Vareth Prime. His scales clicked against the stone floor with each step. His 6 eyes burned with anger and confusion. On the wall, a massive display showed reports from every corner of his empire. All of them said the same thing. The humans were gone. Scout ships had visited every known human colony. They found empty buildings, abandoned stations, and silent ships drifting without power. It was as if someone had reached down and plucked an entire species from existence. This is impossible, the High Minister growled. 7 billion humans on Earth alone. 20 billion more across their colonies. You cannot hide that many people. His advisor, a thin Vorthan named Keth, stood near the door. Perhaps they destroyed themselves, High Minister. A weapon that went wrong. An accident. There would be debris. There would be radiation. There would be something. The High Minister slammed his fist against the wall. There is nothing. Nothing but empty space and questions. The same confusion spread across the galaxy. The Krell sent their best warriors to investigate. They found nothing. The Merchant Coalition offered huge rewards for any information about what had happened. No one came forward. The Crystalline Accord, beings of pure thought and logic, analyzed every piece of data they could find. Their conclusion was simple. Humanity had achieved something that should not be possible. On the council floor, delegates argued and shouted and accused each other of hiding the truth. Some believed the humans had been attacked by an unknown enemy. Now others thought they had discovered some ancient technology that allowed them to escape the galaxy entirely. A few suggested that the humans had never really existed at all, that they had been some kind of elaborate illusion. Ambassador Mitchell's final message played on repeat in intelligence offices across the galaxy. You told us to stay out of your way. We have obliged. What did it mean? Were the humans hiding? Were they planning something? Or were they simply gone forever? The answer came 12 hours later, when the Kethrani Dominion's border fortress at Sentinel Station went dark. Sentinel Station was one of the most heavily defended positions in the quadrant. It sat at the intersection of 3 major trade routes, protecting thousands of ships that passed through each day. 200 warships guarded it at all times. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets. Its shields could withstand bombardment for months. And then it went silent. The first sign of trouble was a brief static burst on the communication channels. Then nothing. No distress call, no weapon fire, no explosions. The 200 warships simply stopped responding. The station's lights went out. Its sensors went dead. When rescue ships arrived 6 hours later, they found Sentinel Station intact but empty. Every crew member was gone. Every ship was abandoned. Computer systems showed no record of any attack. Security cameras showed crew members going about their normal duties, and then suddenly the recordings ended. There was no damage, no signs of battle, no bodies, just emptiness. The Kethrani High Command immediately blamed the Vorthan Dominion. The Vorthans denied any involvement. Detentions rose, fleets were mobilized, war seemed inevitable. Then the Vorthan mining colony at Blackstone Reach stopped transmitting. Blackstone Reach was deep inside Vorthan territory, far from any border or potential enemy. It was a simple mining operation, extracting rare metals from asteroids, no strategic value, no military presence. And yet it went dark in exactly the same way. The Vorthons sent investigators. They found the same thing the Kathrani had found: empty buildings, abandoned equipment, no signs of violence, no explanation. "It's the humans," Keth whispered to the High Minister. "It must be." "How?" the High Minister demanded. "They're gone. We searched their space. There's nothing left. Then they're hiding somewhere we cannot see. And they're attacking us from the shadows." Fear spread through the galaxy like a disease. Species that had laughed at humanity 3 days ago now looked over their shoulders and wondered if they were next. Ships traveled in larger groups. Stations increased their security. But it didn't matter. The Krell shipyards at Groth went silent. The Merchant Coalition's banking center at Nova Prospera vanished. A Crystalline Accord research station disappeared. Each time, the pattern was the same. No warning, no attack, no trace. One moment, thousands of people were going about their lives. The next moment, they were gone. The council speaker called an emergency session. The chamber that had been filled with laughter just days ago was now thick with fear. "We must find the humans," the Vorthan High Minister declared. We must destroy them before they destroy us." "Find them how?" the Krell ambassador demanded. "We've searched everywhere. They're not hiding in normal space. Our best scientists say they're not hiding in hyperspace either. Where else is there?" No one had an answer. In the dimensional space between realities, Admiral Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the command ship Horizon and watched the reports come in. Each successful operation was marked on a holographic map. Each target was chosen carefully to send a message. "Status of Operation Shadow," he said. Commander Nathan Cole answered from across the bridge. He was young for his rank, barely 40, but he had proven himself in a dozen engagements. "All teams report success, Admiral. 0 casualties on our side, 0 fatalities on theirs." That last part was important. Daniel had given strict orders. No killing unless absolutely necessary. They were not here to slaughter. They were here to prove a point. "The Council is terrified," General Porter reported via communication link from Earth. "They're accusing each other of attacks, mobilizing fleets, preparing for war with enemies that don't exist." "Good," Daniel said. "Let them fear shadows for a while longer. Let them understand what it feels like to be helpless." Dr. Samantha Cruz appeared on another screen. She was still in the underground facility, monitoring the dimensional drives that made all of this possible. "We can maintain this pace for another 48 hours, she said. "After that, we'll need to reduce operations to give the drives time to recharge." Daniel nodded. 48 hours is enough. By then, they'll be ready to listen." He turned back to the main display, watching the markers that showed every species that had laughed at humanity in that council chamber. "You called us children," he said quietly. "You said we had nothing. You told us to stay out of your way." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Now you know the truth. The children were never weak. The children were never foolish. The children were just waiting for the right moment to show you what they really are." Outside the ship, in the strange space between dimensions, the human fleet drifted in perfect formation. Hundreds of ships, invisible to the entire galaxy, ready to strike anywhere at any time. The hunt had only just begun. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the assault vessel Relentless and watched reality bend around them. And through the viewing screens, the universe looked wrong. Colors shifted and twisted. Stars appeared where there should have been darkness. Space itself seemed to breathe and move like a living thing. This was dimensional space, the place between places, the hidden layer of reality that humanity had discovered and mastered while the galaxy laughed at their primitive technology. "Approaching target," Lieutenant Amy Reeves reported from her navigation console. She was calm and professional, her fingers moving across the controls with practiced ease. Vorthon Command Station. Designation: Obsidian Throne. We'll be in position in 3 minutes. Nathan studied the tactical display beside his chair. The Obsidian Throne was massive. It was one of the largest military installations in the Vorthon Dominion, and a fortress of black metal and weapons that could crack planets. 200 warships guarded it at all times. Millions of soldiers lived and trained within its walls, and today it would belong to humanity. Status of the other strike groups? Nathan asked. Communications Officer Paul Bennett checked his screens. All 9 teams are in position, Commander. They're waiting for your signal. Nathan thought about his grandfather. The old man had been a cargo pilot, running supplies between human colonies in the early days of expansion. 20 years ago, his ship had crossed paths with a Krell raiding fleet. The Krell had destroyed the ship without warning, killing everyone aboard. When Earth demanded justice, the Galactic Council had ruled it an acceptable loss. Humans were weak, they said. Humans should have stayed out of the way. Nathan had joined the Navy the day he heard about that ruling. He had trained for years, rising through the ranks, waiting for the chance to show the galaxy that human lives were not acceptable losses. Today was that chance. Execute, he said. The Relentless shifted in dimensional space. Reality twisted around the ship, and suddenly they were somewhere else. They emerged from the hidden dimension directly inside the Obsidian Throne's shield perimeter. One moment, there was empty space. The next moment, an Earth vessel hung in the darkness, weapons ready, boarding teams prepared. Alarms screamed across the Vorthon station. Soldiers scrambled to their posts. Commanders shouted orders. But it was already too late. The Relentless was not alone. 8 other assault ships appeared at the same instant. I'm positioned at critical points around the station. Human boarding teams launched before the Vorthons could respond. Armored shuttles crossed the short distance to the station's hull and attached themselves to airlock doors. Boarding teams are in, Amy reported. Teams Alpha through Delta are moving toward the command center. Teams Echo through Hotel are securing the reactor and weapon systems. Nathan watched the progress on his tactical display. Each team appeared as a small blue dot moving through the station's corridors. Red dots marked Vorthon defenders. The humans moved fast. They had trained for this mission for months, memorizing every corridor and room from stolen blueprints. They wore advanced armor that stopped Vorthon weapons. They carried stun devices that dropped enemies without killing them. "Wait, Team Alpha has reached the command center," Paul announced. "They're breaching now." Inside the Obsidian Throne, the Vorthon station commander watched in horror as human soldiers cut through his blast doors. He had 50 guards with him, armed with the best weapons the Dominion could provide. It didn't matter. The humans moved like shadows. They dodged fire that should have hit them. They appeared from angles that seemed impossible. Their weapons hummed, and Vorthon soldiers dropped to the floor, unconscious but alive. In less than 10 minutes, the command center belonged to the humans. Outside the station's shields, the 200 Vorthon warships watched helplessly. They couldn't fire on the station without destroying their own people. They couldn't break through the shields without the override codes that were now in human hands. Nathan opened a broadcast channel. He knew the message would spread across the quadrant within hours. "This station now belongs to the United Earth Navy," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "We have not come to conquer. We have come to make a point." On Varath Prime, the Galactic Council received the transmission in real time. The chamber fell silent as Nathan's face appeared on the main display. "You said we were children," Nathan continued. "You said we were weak. You said we had nothing to offer. You were wrong." The Vorthon High Minister stared at the screen, his 6 eyes wide with shock. This was impossible. No species could capture the Obsidian Throne. No species could move through shields and walls as if they didn't exist. "No, for 200 years we let you believe what you wanted to believe," Nathan said. We let you see slow ships and weak weapons and failing shields. We let you think we were primitive fools who could barely copy your technology." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Every technology you saw was a lie. Every weakness you identified was shown to you on purpose. While you laughed at us, we were working. While you dismissed us, we were building. While you told us we had nothing to offer, we were developing capabilities you cannot imagine." The council speaker tried to restore order, but no one was listening. Delegates shouted and argued. Some demanded immediate war against humanity. Others called for surrender. The fear in the chamber was thick enough to taste. "You measured our worth by our territory," Nathan continued. "By our age. By our willingness to boast and threaten and show off our power. You never thought to measure what we might become when no one was watching." Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen beside Nathan. He stood on the bridge of the horizon, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet. "We could have destroyed your station," Daniel said. "We could have killed your soldiers. We chose not to. This is not about revenge. This is about respect." The Vorthon High Minister finally found his voice. "What do you want?" he demanded. "We want what we always wanted," Daniel replied. "A seat at your table, a voice in your council, the right to be treated as equals." "And if we refuse?" Daniel's expression didn't change. "We have demonstrated what we can do to a single station. Imagine what we could do to your entire empire, to all of your empires. Like, we can appear anywhere, at any time, and there is nothing you can do to stop us." He leaned forward slightly. "But we don't want war. We never wanted war. We want cooperation, partnership, the chance to build something together instead of tearing each other apart." The transmission ended. The council chamber exploded into chaos, but across the galaxy the message was clear. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer weak, and humanity would never be laughed at again. On the Bridge of the Relentless, Nathan watched the last Vorthon defenders surrender. Not a single person had died, human or alien. "Status report," he said. Amy checked her console. "All teams report success. The station is secure. 0 casualties." Nathan nodded. They had proven their point. Now it was time for the council to decide what came next. He looked out at the stars, thinking about his grandfather. "We're not acceptable losses anymore," he said quietly. "We never were." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. The same crystal walls that had echoed with laughter 5 days ago now seemed to absorb every sound. The floating lights that had sparkled like stars now seemed dim and cold. The 47 species that had mocked humanity sat in their seats and waited in silence. Admiral Daniel Hayes walked through the great bronze doors and across the polished stone floor. His footsteps were the only sound in the massive chamber. He wore the same dress uniform he had worn before, but something had changed. Before, the delegates had looked at him like he was an insect. Now they watched him like he was a predator. Ambassador Laura Mitchell walked beside him, no longer a hologram, but present in person. Behind them, a holographic display showed 27 strategic installations across the galaxy. All of them had been captured by human forces in the past 48 hours. All of them had been returned, undamaged, with their crews unharmed. Daniel reached the speaker's platform and turned to face the assembly. For a long moment he said nothing. He simply looked at them, meeting the eyes of species that had dismissed his people as worthless children. The Vorthon High Minister sat in his usual place, but he looked different. His scales had lost their shine. His 6 eyes no longer burned with arrogance. He looked tired. He looked afraid. 5 days ago, Daniel began, his voice carrying through the silent chamber, I stood on this platform and asked for membership in your council. But you laughed at me. You called my species weak. You told us we had nothing to offer. He paused, letting the memory hang in the air. You were right about one thing. We are young. 200 years of spacefaring is nothing compared to your great empires. We have much to learn from you. The delegates shifted in their seats, uncertain where this was going. But you were wrong about everything else. Daniel touched a control on the platform. The holographic display changed, showing footage from the capture of the Obsidian Throne. Human soldiers moved through corridors with impossible speed and precision. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They took control of the most powerful military station in the Vorthon Dominion in less than an hour. We could have destroyed that station, Daniel said. Hey, we could have killed everyone aboard. We chose not to. The display changed again, showing footage from other captured installations. The Kathrani Fortress, the Krell shipyards, the Merchant Coalition Banking Center. In each case, human forces had achieved complete victory without a single death on either side. In every operation, we gave specific orders: no killing unless absolutely necessary, no destruction unless there was no other choice. We came to prove a point, not to start a war. The Krell ambassador leaned forward in his seat. His massive body was tense with anger, but also with something else. Respect, perhaps. Or fear. What point? He demanded. That you can appear from nowhere and vanish into nothing? That your technology is beyond our understanding? We know this now. And what do you want? Daniel turned to face him directly. We want what we always wanted. The same thing we asked for 5 days ago. Membership in this council. A voice in the decisions that shape the galaxy. The right to be treated as equals. Equals? The Krell ambassador stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You capture our stations, humiliate our forces, prove that you can strike anywhere without warning, and then you ask to be equals? Yes, Daniel said simply. Ambassador Mitchell stepped forward. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of everything humanity had endured. We did not want this, she said. We wanted partnership, cooperation. We wanted to learn from your great civilizations and share what we had developed. We offered our medical advances, our agricultural technology, and our willingness to work together for the good of all species. She turned in a slow circle, looking at each delegation in turn. You rejected us. You laughed at us. You told us we were worthless. What choice did we have? If we had continued to ask politely, you would have continued to ignore us. Another 500 years of rejection. Another 500 years of being told we had nothing to offer. She stopped turning and faced the High Minister. We do not seek to rule this council. We do not want your worlds or your resources. We do not wish to replace your empires. But we will no longer be dismissed. We will no longer be humiliated. From this day forward, humanity speaks as an equal, or humanity speaks not at all. The chamber remained silent. Daniel could see the calculations happening behind dozens of alien eyes. And they were weighing the risks. Humanity had proven it could strike anywhere. Fighting back would be costly, perhaps impossible, but accepting humanity as an equal meant admitting they had been wrong. The Vorthan High Minister rose slowly from his seat. His scales clicked softly as he moved. He walked down from his delegation's platform and stopped in front of Daniel, close enough to touch. You have made your point, he said quietly. His translator made the words flat and emotionless, but Daniel could see the turmoil in his 6 burning eyes. The Vorthan Dominion underestimated you. I underestimated you. He turned to face the full assembly. For 90,000 years we have measured worth by age and territory and military might. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps there are other forms of strength that we failed to see. He took a deep breath that hissed through his scales. The Vorthon Dominion moves to accept humanity's petition for council membership. Silence. Then, slowly, the Kathrani delegate raised her hand in agreement. The Merchant Coalition followed. Then the Crystalline Accord, One by one, delegations that had laughed at humanity 5 days ago voted to accept them as equals. The Krell ambassador was the last to vote. He stood for a long moment, his massive fists clenched at his sides. Then he nodded once and sat down. The vote was unanimous. The council speaker, the being of pure light, floated forward. The motion passes. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, and with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Daniel allowed himself a small smile, not of triumph, but of relief. They had done it, not through war, not through conquest, but through a demonstration of strength that left no doubt about what humanity could do. As he and Laura walked toward the bronze doors, no laughter followed them. No insults, no dismissals, just silence and respect. 3 years later, Commander Nathan Cole would lead the first joint patrol mission between human and Vorthon forces. Dr. Samantha Cruz would receive the Galactic Science Prize for her work on dimensional physics. Ambassador Mitchell would become the first human to chair a council session. And somewhere deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that still did not officially exist, the protocol files remained sealed and ready, just in case humanity ever needed to vanish again. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. The quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who smiled at insults and nodded at dismissals, were not always weak. Sometimes they were simply waiting. And when they finally showed what they could do, the universe would never be the same.